Wake up, get ready, time to shine, it's your day.
Love it. Thank you very much. So, are we on the same team? Like Dan queued up, it's a discussion on being a on the same page with your internal stakeholders. So let's hop into it. Here's the agenda for today. And again, I'm really happy to be here with all of you. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to first be looking at why this topic even matters. It's a big question, whether no matter where you're at in your career. And so we'll review why it's an important thing to constantly be revisiting. Second, we're going to go through the details about what the components can be to a structured hiring process that I've personally found successful. Third area, navigating ambiguity. And we'll do our best to bring a pseudo search through the process of how we can remove ambiguity from our internal stakeholders, AKA our lovely hiring managers. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with a quick conclusion on our talking points today. So let's hop into the topic. So again, hi, I'm Greg. I am a recruiter. I've been a recruiter for 10 years. As Dan mentioned, I'm with the Museum of Ice Cream today, as well as overseeing recruitment for Museum of Ice Cream's parent company, which is Figure Eight. My focus is on bringing a startup culture to life, which means that there is a ton of ambiguity. There's a ton of relationships to build, and I love it every single day. Ice cream, that is right. I also wanted to show here that I'm also a normal person with a family, couple of kids who love the fact that dad works for an ice cream company. So pretty cool stuff. Again, why this topic? So there's relevancy with it to all levels of the recruiting experience. And honestly, it's one of the hardest areas to maintain in terms of consistency and quality. Simply put, the most effective search is going to actually be effective when TA, as we all know, is really aligned with our hiring partners. And it's not just at the beginning of an interview stage or the beginning of an overall search, it's through every single touch point along the way, all the way through up until that candidate shows up for their very first day. So if you love anxiety, welcome to being a recruiter. Again, the right placement happens when we work together. Let's talk more about some search here and how ambiguity will start snaking its way in here. So we've all had searches that go off the rails, right? And it's always going to be for some variety of a reason. I've had personal searches go off the rails. I'll share a couple reasons here that'll probably sound familiar because I know I'm speaking with my peers. It could be the quest for the purple unicorn, right? The candidate that meets 11 out of 10 things that our hiring managers are looking for. It could be that point at the search where we found a qualified person, and then the hiring manager says, I'd like to see just a couple more just to make sure we're covering our bases. At some point during the search, you've been going down the rabbit hole and you've got all great candidates in front of a hiring manager, and they say, well, we're actually going to change the job description right now, but my timeline is still the same. So is that cool? Sure, great. Also, overall, a disengaged hiring manager, one that's hard to get hold of, has unknown amounts of PTO, or is just simply offline at random times or doesn't show up for meetings. Again, we've all been in these moments, this misalignment through each step. These create inefficient processes, arguably, and I think again we can attest to it, a really poor candidate experience. It's important to remember that, as you see here, recruiting is a team sport, right? It's not a handoff process and let me know when the job is done. We all know that strong alignment does lead to better hires. That leads to faster results and stronger teams internally as well as externally with our candidates. Misalignments tend to lead to delays that we can control, or unfortunately, a poor candidate experience and sometimes a mismatched hire where success doesn't quite look the same for the person that we hired. Clear communication is obviously then going to be essential. It could be a detailed intake process. Like I'm talking ultra specific detailed. We'll hop into that later. It can be proactively establishing regular syncs with your HMs or utilizing insights from the market to drive decision making. And most importantly, going out of your way to overly communicate where your internal stakeholders can help you when you're experiencing certain search roadblocks. And we can better navigate through these unforeseen obstacles due to that proper planning and maintaining a solution focused mindset. We're going to hop into the second section now, the in the details area. So let's review the key components of a hiring process. I like this quote, and I really wanted to share it with you all. It's from Jillian Mailer. And Jillian Mailer, I guess why it matters is that with Jillian, I've got like some slides here, some notes, so forgive me. Um, Nerves are good, right? It means I care. I think it means I care. So Jillian Mailer, she's a former VP of Brand and Creative Development at Recruitrix, where she managed employer brands across all touch points, across all sort of recruitment, marketing, advertising, across that landscape. And her quote is this: "Your employer brand is never what you say it is. It's what your employees and candidates say who it is." For me, it really resonates because this is why having a clearly defined hiring process is really crucial. Not only does it impact the hiring success, but it impacts areas that we can't control, our brand, what people say about us in the marketplace. Whether or not they get a role, people are going to remember their time with us. That's why this quote matters, because there are things we can control, things we can't control. Like you saw earlier, I have two boys, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I can't control that my 4-year-old likes the flavor of dirt right now. I don't get it, not my cup of tea, but I can control the opportunity to help him understand what healthy eating looks like and what the right decisions can be. It is weird when I see him like licking the garage door. I don't know, like my wife and I are working on that. So if anybody has tips, feel free to send that over LinkedIn or whatever way here in the chat. That's right. Mud pies are life. Thank you, Steve. What I like about this quote too is that, again, when it comes to search, what we can't control are people's past experiences with the brand that we're representing today. And sometimes we can't even control the fact that no matter what, search will encompass some form of ambiguity. But what we can control, again, is having a clearly defined search process. We can control having our internal teams bought in. We can control our level of being transparent and being and empowering our teams, as well as holding our teams accountable to the deliverables and activity within the search. Because the more info they provide, the faster we'll all win. We'll have shorter timelines and hopefully easier negotiations if it comes to that. And that's why this information matters, because every time a potential employee interacts with a brand, there stands a good chance that their first point of contact with our organization is going to be one of us. And the more a hiring manager can actually support that moment, the likelihood a candidate will want to continue into your role will only increase. So that's why we focus on what we can control in TA, because of these byproducts around internal stakeholders being bought into the process and external stakeholders getting things like strong clarity and feedback. We can see that the desire for our roles increase when we can tell a great story based on tangible measures of what success looks like in the role. So let's do that. Let's break down the essential elements of a structured hiring process. So following elements are part of what I think are a clearly defined search process. Role context, understanding why the role is open. What's the structure around the role? What are things like compensation? Not just the base salary, but is there a bonus? What's the bonus cycle like? Is there an equity component involved to it? What's the vesting schedule like? These things are crucial for starting out right away on level setting expectations from a candidate on very objective measures for this role. Most importantly, and I don't know if any of you have experienced this, what's the start date that we would like this person to be in seat? Hiring managers, we know, will say a lot of different things in this world, right? We'll hop into that in a little bit, but I can already feel the recruiting trees shaking around the I need this person yesterday or ASAP. So it's coming. Um, Again, where they will fit within the business, so people understand what career pathing or internal mobility could potentially look like, and who they'll work with, who are their peers, their direct reports, who do they report to, and what are these titles. Moving on to sourcing strategy. When we identify the right skills, industries, and potential challenges, these things help streamline our process. So this could be when we look at a sourcing strategy, what are the relevant skill sets? What are the industries that we're interested in? What are titles that we're interested in? What are the must-haves versus nice-to-haves? Things to avoid, years of experience, the list goes on. One thing we try to do here at Museum of Ice Cream at this point is we use one of our company values called think outside the cone. Ha ha ha. But think outside the cone allows us to make sure that we can include candidates that may be a little bit unorthodox, or the hiring manager may not actually think this person makes sense right away, but it allows the recruiter to go down the path and explore different versions of success. The interview plan, our next part here. With the interview plan, clarifying the steps, the stakeholders, what topics, what questions, and making sure there's a aligned level of what success looks like in your Q&A responses and who the actual decision makers are can be a great way to make sure that these additional stakeholders understand expectations from them by the hiring manager. So when we get to the review phase, there is no missing about what success means from a Q&A standpoint, and we can provide objective measures of a quality response. Finally, the additional points or considerations here, evaluation rubrics, upcoming unavailabilities, who are our backup participants in case someone is out on a planned PTO. If someone is out for unforeseen circumstances, how do we make sure that from a candidate experience standpoint, we can keep momentum going? So let's identify backup stakeholders we feel like we can trust and rely on should that need come up. All of these things do ensure consistency. It helps us maintain objectivity. We can do things like remove bias, and we can make sure that our timelines stay intact. So, given this topic of stakeholders management, and we consider these steps, who do we think is the one defined with answering these steps? I'll give you a hint. It starts with hiring and ends with manager. Why is that? I'll tell you why I think it is because of the expert knowledge in their space. They do their job every day. A marketing leader is a marketing leader for a reason. I am not a marketing leader. So I need them to fill out all of these steps to the best of their ability. It doesn't have to be perfect when they're completing their intake form and these elements to it. But because this role most likely is a significant impact to their team and what success looks like within their team, we want them to keep going through and fill this out as much as possible. Let's get through and navigate some ambiguity here. So, when it comes to ambiguity here, um, we've all faced it. And then when we have ambiguity, how do we balance search flexibility with the need for structure in it, right? How does ambiguity actually affect our ability to communicate with stakeholders in a way that gets results done? It's a constant in hiring, but it doesn't have to be a roadblock. And the key is really at this point to focus on context, strategy, and structured interview elements like we just discussed. So let's explore how we can manage some of these unknowns effectively. Here's how we're going to look at this moment. We're going to look at a search for a marketing manager and identify it, how we remove it in partnership with our hiring teams. But before we get into those details, again, when we look at what ambiguity can look like, some of the topics we've already talked about today include a vague hiring date, a vague job description, unclear interview processes, a shifting background or level of what success looks like, multiple perspectives on what success may look like. And all those things we know impact the candidate experience and lead to things like confusion and frustration, and maybe they drop out or accept another offer. Ambiguity is a constant. So, understanding the needs, the dynamics, and the market trends will help give context to this moment and remove ambiguity. This is how we remove things like, I need a rock star. Tell us what that means. This is a meaningless term to me because that is ambiguous and can mean something different to you than it is to me. So please explain what a rock star means. If we understand the goals, if we understand the organizational structure, gaps and opportunities, we can clear up this perception of a rock star. Let's understand the why. Let's understand the real expectations of our hiring managers. Let's understand the real decision makers in this moment. Let's understand things like Stephen pointed out, labor market conditions, so we can ensure hiring decisions are made in a timely and effective manner relative to the market that we're facing today and in the future. And how are our competitors treating this moment? The strategy side, right? Being proactive versus reactive assures we all stay ahead of our moments and we're not victims of a complicated, ambiguous search. A proactive strategy obviously will minimize your risk as much as possible and ensures we have a defined goal that we are working towards, even if we don't have all the answers up front. This is how we balance clarity and ambiguity. So be proactive, ask the right questions, and create a decision making framework so that we understand who will make the right hiring call and what criteria we'll use to evaluate candidates. Here's your pro tip: instead of letting your hiring manager off the hook when it comes to hiring decisions, force them to get in the mud and talk about it and make sure that they feel comfortable saying, here are the objective reasons as to why I would like to move forward with a candidate, versus B candidate. Heck, even do it with the other panelists if you're doing a full panel process. Why did you like someone? Give me an objective reason why. And if you don't like that person, give me an objective reason why, because this helps avoid backtracking and ensures accountability to everybody throughout the search. Your interview elements, right? These having a really constant and clear sample of your interview elements will bring clarity, even when our hiring criteria can have some ambiguity to it. Our standardized interview processes can remove bias, improve decision making, and ensure candidates have a consistent level of evaluation. These are all practices that I'm implementing here at MOIC, and in a startup culture, it's needed more than ever. Here, I wanted to share with you all the spectrum that I use for my hiring managers and internal stakeholders. Imagine you have three interviewers assessing your candidates, but they're all looking for different things. Without a structured feedback process, one person might love the candidate for communication skills, while another rejects them for a lack of technical depth. Alignment through a spectrum such as this can create informed and collective decisions that avoid the pass fail scenario and make sure that we can have it forces feedback, it forces clear feedback, and something that hiring managers can sometimes utilize to say, I don't need someone perfect, I need someone great. We all know that people, when in their pursuit of perfection, will often sacrifice great candidates along the way. A spectrum like this can help sort of poke away at that. Finally, on the ambiguity portion again, one of the most vague assessments that we hear is fit, right? They didn't feel right. Oh, I didn't trust it. Oh, my gut's telling me this isn't going to be the path we want to pursue. Personal biases really snake their way in at this point. I'm sure we've all faced it when someone is eliminated from a role based on something intangible or and just not feeling it with this person, the wrong vibe versus objective measures of success. This lack of clarity can limit a business's growth because we're not identifying new skills or cultural values to help push the business forward. And yes, it is the hiring manager's right to make the hiring decision, but it's the recruiter's job to get in and say, tell me what fit means. It's one of the most ambiguous terms. And making sure that we can center fit around the words like, what are our company values and how do we define that person in terms of things like thinking outside the cone or scooping safely together would actually mean inclusion and safety. A hiring manager might say this feels like this person isn't the right fit without explaining why, and that's a problem. Let's figure that problem out. So, in conclusion, at the end of the hiring process, ambiguity should not be the reason to eliminate a candidate. It should not be part of the hiring decision. The key to making really strong, confident hires is a structured approach that reduces bias, it promotes alignment, and ensures every candidate is evaluated based on the exact same criteria. And by proactively defining context, strategy, and structured interviews and the concept of fit, we can reduce ambiguity and make more effective hiring decisions as a team. Because at the end of the hiring process, ambiguity should never be the deciding factor in whether a candidate is hired. And strong, confident hiring decisions stem from a structured process to reduce these areas, like we've talked about, areas like bias. A great hire is backed by clear data and strong reasoning rather than vague feelings. And the goal of this effective process to not, again, I'll die on this sword. The goal is never to find a perfect candidate. It's to find a great candidate based on clarity, consistency, and confidence. And with that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today.